theme of capacity planning, there's some other events circling around that I'd like your feedback on how it's going to impact the current networks. First of all, Internet of Things. So not just the wearables, but the smart cities, the connected cars, the smart factories, smart healthcare, etc. How will Internet of Things impact the current infrastructure? And I'll maybe start here and we'll work our way down.
Okay, so Internet of Things, I think, is a great business intelligence application. But you know, I've talked to CIOs of major oil companies, and you know, you can have too much information. So the Internet of Things really has to be controlled at the business intelligence side. And what are you trying to do to solve business problems or monitor those things? But low latency, packet loss, and jitter are what really Internet of Things has to evolve to. It's not good enough to have your data transferred over the nighttime to your central office. It has to evolve to real time, and it has to be planned out such that you know, you're getting what you need, and I always say, and you guys kind of touched on it here, new technologies for delivering access and networks between data centers. If they're efficient networks, you know, you can actually tweak them and react in a better way. And so Internet of Things, I think, is going to be all about understanding a client's business needs, and it's going to be very custom. It's not going to be something where you're going to assume that everything's just going to be populated with Internet of Things. It's going to have to be planned out.
I'm going to ask a very embarrassing question of the audience, and you don't have to react. I'd just like you to think of the answer to yourself. What is the cloud? Do you yourself fully understand what the cloud is? No, I don't.
One guy just looked at his watch. So
Yeah, Cloud is really somebody else's data center. I'm sending stuff to the cloud, I'm sending it to someone else's data center. What is the purpose of the cloud? It's a marketing label for a process that people will hope accelerates. What is the Internet of Things? It's a marketing label for a process that people hope will accelerate. And I'm not sure there's a need to connect my shoelaces to your shoelaces, you know? That there hasn't been before, because there's an assumption in Internet of Things that everything is connected. There's no reason. In the Internet, everything isn't connected. The Internet is a collection of networks. My pad is not on the Internet. It's on whatever local carrier service has, and then it goes to the Internet. There is no Internet of pads. There is no Internet of Things. I feel strongly about this because I'm partly guilty of pushing the Internet of Things idea.
Yeah,
now I'm changing my mind about it.
For the purposes of today's discussion, it's not about connecting toasters. It's about what I would call the industrial internet, where you're looking at smart cities and smart surveillance and first responder. You take China, for example, that's moved 300 million people over the last 10 years to the urban market. That's an acute problem. There's another 300 million coming. So you've got acute issues in major markets that are going to have to address transportation. They're going to have to address energy consumption. They're going to have to address scarcity of water and other resources. And so the ability for companies like Bosch, GE, Siemens to start addressing these issues with industrial Internet of Things, I think, is a different question than connecting toasters and shoelaces. So it's a very real world challenge, and all of you here at the table are going to have to address it. You guys are in New York City. That's where we met at first. The most dense market in the U.S. certainly. And if you try to use your smartphone there 2 years ago, a year ago, down at the Starbucks, you simply couldn't connect, right? So the caverns that are created by these tall buildings make it nearly impossible. And that drives the next question, which is small cell densification. But I'm kind of curious from you guys, Greg and Jay, what do you think this industrial internet is going to do for your business? And then how are you supporting your customers to prepare them for things like densification and Internet of Things?
So I'll kind of build on a couple of the other previous thoughts, but I'd like to do with maybe with a metaphor, because I think it's relevant, not to say what is the Internet of Things, but what's the effect of it? And
Yep.
that's when I talk to my clients that are on the data side of our business, what is the effect of all of this stuff? So when I first came out of school, I worked for a robotics company, and the lady who ran this thing was probably the smartest human being on the planet, next to Stephen Hawking. And she wrote a thesis at 22 at MIT and informed this company, but it was based on human sensations. And the rub of it was that every sensation you add is not linearly additive, it's exponentially additive. So if you can see somebody, I can see you, okay, fine, that's one thing. But if I can see and hear you, then that's a whole other level of experience. I would say that there's an impact when you look at the data side of all of these things that are, whether it's smart cars or smartphones or smart pads or smart toasters, or it's surveillance. You now don't have an additive thing, right? Because there's some base level of stuff that's just always going to be passing through it that you've got to plan for spikes and peaks and everything else. Otherwise, most people think, oh, I lost my cell phone because the wireless is bad. Nonsense. You lost your cell phone because the backhaul's broken. You got thrown off because of bit problems. It had nothing to do with the wireless. It's connected just fine. But that is a perfect example when you start to look to tack on to an incumbent network, the underlying capacity of it's going to have to be exponentially capable of handling all these things because they're not additive at a 1+1 basis. What that means when you look at, as we play our role as a carrier, the metropolitan areas as an example, some of the things that we are trying to do is figure out how do you escalate the science so that millimeter wave being one of the first things you asked me about, and we've teamed and partnered with some folks that we think can be most useful in getting us to 10 and 100 gigabit radios, where the cost of the radios isn't $50,000, it's $5,000.
Yep.
Now your cost per bit per mile has geometrically changed, and if you don't have that geometric shift, then all you're going to do is have a perpetuation of the problem. And the networking problem is not going to get solved by anyone's science. I mean, millimeter wave will be a tool in a very vast toolbox, as one wireless tool, because without its fiber complement and its satellite complement, it will fail. I mean, that's what you're going to have dense, layered, interconnected networks that leverage multiple media. Because one of the big things, imagine this, we're all driving around in our smart car in 10 years. You want just one medium controlling that car going down the street? Because I sure as hell don't. Yeah. It's wireless when it rains, you're dead. If it's fiber, there's an earthquake, I hope your will's in order. So there's a real essential thing, but you look at the cascading of all these matters, and it's not insignificant. So I think that, again, that exponential experience component of human sensory level, when you take that and tack it on to what a network looks like, you have to take that base and then plan for level and level and level stacking on top of it, and it becomes a bit of an uncontrollable difficulty because we don't have all the tools today.
And Greg, what kind of conversations are you have with your clients about either small cell densification or Internet of Things?
Well, Internet of Things, I was going to say, I've seen a lot of the sort of Forrester and Gartner type information say by 2020, we've talked about sort of 50 billion devices at the edge. And it's a huge amount of data generation or information that's just being generated. Well, I like the sort of, I read somewhere recently about the wearable technology, the Fitband type stuff, and they actually, the seismologists actually looked at some of the Fitband data, and it gave them more accurate readings than their current seismology information when an earthquake struck. Because people woke up, people moved around when the tremor happened. And so they got millions of data points for that, whereas they only had a couple of thousand seismology monitors.
Yeah.
So this whole ability to have all these enormous amounts of sensors around the world that you can then collect information from and interpret, so this whole big data is there. It's just a matter of what are you going to use that data for. And there will be more clever things coming out of it. It's going to happen, it's going to grow, we get more intelligent about what we're doing out there. And that might mean, we end up, having, connected cows, cows wearing wearables, or, whatever other animals out there that we can start monitoring the health of and tracking them and all the rest of it.
The smart hamburger?
Yeah, smart. So there's, where does it stop? Where does it end? And I think the end has to be known. It has to be. There is, of course, limits. There's physical resource limits. There's network resource limits as to what you can actually build out there. And of course, as a core network, we've also got to provide connectivity
on the fibre assets that we've got and into the data centres, and the data centres have power limits in each of the regions. You know, there's scope and scale to it all.
I'm in danger of thinking that Jay may be right. I'm reluctant to say that, but Jay may be right. Right in the sense that what will get done is what can be paid for. The wallet is the tool, and the effect will be only things that can add value will actually be implemented. To state it as a general technology issue, all of these things are potentially connectable, overstates it. There will only be a subset of things that actually add value by being connected. And that's a much smaller subset.
Well, I think to build on that for a second, I mean, I've joked at these panels in the past that our low latency practice is kind of our military and industrial complex. All right, why do we have cell phones? I mean, you know, Susie Q didn't one day say, hey, listen, Daddy, go to work and invent me a cell phone. The military invented it. You know, DARPA program. All of a sudden, we all have, you know, we're tied to these things like a dog to a leash. But without the ability to have some economic way to generate the next thing, and I would expand upon something Greg just said. You know, 40 years ago, we didn't have fiber optic in the ground. You know, Sprint built its first end-to-end thing in the 80s. That was cutting edge, state-of-the-art. Now it's yesterday's news. I would argue that the things that are going to solve some of these problems don't even exist yet. And none of us here are probably smart enough to think what those things are. In terms of transportation mediums, modulation schemes, silicon. I mean, I think your silicon footprint argument was a really clever way of looking at what does that mean, because if you can make that more efficient, and invention will happen, but I would be steadfast that, I mean, I'm a nerd in a suit, but I've learned long enough that without money, the nerd gets to develop nothing. So you need the economic push to make it happen, and that's, you know, again, all the things that we're doing in our data practice, we're all hatched in our low latency practice. But if you look at the cost per bit in our low latency practice, it's more than 100 times the cost per bit in our data practice. I wish that wasn't true. I thought that had multiple in my data practice.
Well, one final question. When I talk about Internet of Things, machine-to-machine communication falls into that. And Rob, you work a lot in oil and gas. There have been SCADA systems in oil and gas monitoring things for a long time.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from your customers about using LTE networks or cellular networks or other types of networks to replace the old M2M sensing networks that exist today? And for going back to the ROI, what is the ROI on that? Why would they invest the money to upgrade to monitoring everything through a cellular network or a new type of network?
Yeah, so I think you have to look at it from what you're trying to plan to do first, and the benefit of that. And so a lot of my clients are looking at low latency, high availability networks to deliver business intelligence. And that is really driving the type of private network and then access technologies. But also you have constraints like geography. So as an example, north of the 60th parallel in Canada and above, it's probably going to be satellite. But where you can be close to a cellular tower that has fiber, or you may use LTE if the latency is okay, or you may build your own private nomadic network that's backhauled by the nearest fiber using microwave. So it all depends on what you are trying to accomplish with the information, but my clients are really using it to make their businesses more efficient. The price of oil went from $100 to $45 a barrel. Natural gas and LNG are all affected by capacity. So they're really looking at it as to how do I do what I did before more efficiently with big data. And so that's what really drives this whole thing. And so the total cost of ownership drives how much the investment is.